Any emotion is estrogen. You can't have an emotion without estrogen. That's
Mm.
the fuel of emotion. And the fuel of testosterone is.
Oh my gosh, people, what can I say about John Gray? I think he's my all-time favorite podcast guest, and he was so generous to join me for the fourth time. It's been 5 years, almost exactly, since our first recording in January of 2019. And as listeners are familiar with, I was inspired the very next day to propose to Mia Moore after he was describing the ideal partner. And I said, oh my gosh, she's right there with me. What am I waiting for? So this man has had a profound impact on my life, dating back many years since his string of best-selling books started in the 90s. Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus, and John Gray is known as the #1 best-selling relationship of all time with his series of books relating to that Mars and Venus theme. In particular, the release of Beyond Mars and Venus brought a whole new element to his life's work, and that is the hormonal underpinnings that influence modern relationship dynamics, especially the difficulties that we have as culture and gender roles evolve and advance from the dated examples of the previous generation. It also comes with a lot of challenges where we are still influenced by our primary biological drives. For the male, that is testosterone, and for the female, that's estrogen. But we're asked to kind of suppress those or intermingle those with our modern roles. And that's where we get into a lot of trouble. This it was an amazing show because this guy and his amazing life's work has the unique ability to just go off and like a wind-up toy and go in whatever direction he deems appropriate. And we get so many amazing insights. And I was taking notes and following along carefully, I realized that he touched on topics that have probably been covered in literally a dozen different podcasts that I've published on this channel with experts where we talk intensely about the subject for a long time. He made a passing reference to the blue zones where I just recorded an entire show talking about some of the misappropriations of the blue zones insights and the true secrets to their longevity. And John's just got that on the top of his head as a short aside, and so many other ones. So let me give you a quick rundown of what's going to be covered in this amazing and fast-moving show. So if you start to fall behind or not pick up some of the baseline assumptions, please, please, please go back and listen to our previous 3 feature-length interviews, as well as my show titled The Essential Male and Female Relationships Assignments from John Gray, where I try to summarize all the content that he spoke about for hours and put together a really concrete action plan. But in this show, as I say at the end, we even go beyond Mars and Venus with fresh new insights. He's always got something cooking and continuing to grind hard, putting on his live seminars in Northern California, traveling around the world to do so, and also the great online content at marsvenus.com. So listen to our podcast episodes, jump over to his website, and consume some of that content. We tried to focus specifically in this episode about longtime couples stuck in somewhat of relationship ruts and why that happens. And he gets into it right away with the insight that the dopamine triggering behaviors that the human is wired to pursue, this generally involves novel stimulation. So it's easy to take a relationship for granted because we are wired for fresh, new, and exciting. And so we talk about the unique dynamics today where people can make a concerted decision to just engage in a series of short-term exciting, fresh new relationships with the mobile device providing access like never before. And so the compromises and the strategies that we can use when we're immersed into long-term relationships to keep things fresh and exciting. One of those right out of the gate was you absolutely, essentially must have sexual intercourse once a week. And toward the end of the episode, he talks about why you don't want to do so more frequently. It has to do with male testosterone levels, and certainly not less frequently than that. It's vitally important to relationship health. He also talks about how vulnerability, especially when the female becomes vulnerable and asks for the male's help, is a huge turn on for the male and a huge relationship boost. He talks about how the brain's not fully formed until age 28. So you young listeners, your self-reflection really kicks in much later. And if you don't do some personal education, reflection, and strive for personal betterment as a young person, then the frontal lobes will not fully form. And so hopefully we have some young listeners getting deep into this and realizing that you're building the brain and all those great attributes. We talk about how cortisol antagonizes the optimal hormone balance for the male testosterone and the female estrogen. He talks about how young males in today's society are being demasculinized in many ways. You've heard him talk about the extreme destruction caused by the deadly combination of pornographic and video games. So the modern male is getting their biological drives assuaged by the combination of porn and video games to the detriment of their ability to go out there and compete and excel and conquer challenges and form meaningful personal relationships in today's world. We're going to have a lot of insights sprinkled in about how to get past relationship ruts, especially that familiar advice from the other shows that the man is to remain a kung fu master, calm, cool, and collected at all times. And when the male gets angry, it never ends well. Quote from John Gray, it always gets worse. Remember, the female's most profound biological driven fear today is the anger of her partner. And in the old days, it was getting the family eaten by a predator. And now, soberingly, it's the anger from their male partner. We get into dynamics with same-sex relationships because so much of the commentary is spit out with the familiar dynamics of the male and the female. And so John will help you there with some nuance. And finally, he leaves you with some beautiful tips to turn things around quickly. And they're so simple, they're so powerful. I want you to listen to these deeply. Again, John Gray has been such a life-changing influence on me and my partnership with Mia Moore. We love this guy. We're going to go to one of his live seminars. I hope to see you there sometime. But for now, please, please, please listen to the entire show and hopefully replay it on a regular basis because it's so rich in advice, information, and of course, entertainment and high energy from the one and the only John Gray. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, beyond Mars and Venus. Here we go. Dr. John Gray, I am so happy to join you again. It's been 5 years since the very first episode we recorded, which was so special to me. And as I reminded you, at the very next day, I proposed to my wife, Elizabeth, inspired by your show. And so I wanted to catch up with you and realize that it's also been that long since your wife, Bonnie, passed. And see how things are going for you in 2024 here, recording right around the time of Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I had a great Valentine's Day, and I spent about 2 years grieving the loss of Bonnie. Occasionally, my daughter Lauren will send me a picture, and immediately tears just flow out of my eyes of how much I love Bonnie and miss her, but only for that moment. And then I come back to I'm in love with my wife. I got married 2 years later, and I'm just as happy as can be. Or actually, 3 years later, got married, but I started dating again after a couple of years and found the perfect person for me. I'm in love, and we talked about this, so I'll go ahead and share it. One time she asked me, do you love me more than your wife who died? Of course, I can't, I always hold Bonnie, my dear sweetheart Bonnie. And I told her, well, the truth is that my heart is bigger now after losing Bonnie, all the grief and appreciating all that she did for me, that I have more love to give. So you're the lucky woman who gets more love from me. So I'm able to love you more than I could love Bonnie. And some people maybe don't understand that right away. So I want to just qualify. I'm holding one of my books that I wrote, for example, and it's right here. And when I'd be working on a chapter, there's always a snag, some paragraph, some page isn't really working out the way you want it to be. You're kind of frustrated with it. This is a long time ago. And the computer would crash and I'd lose that. And my feeling was, no, that was so good. That was so good. I could never bring it back. That's what happens sometimes when we lose something. That's when our heart can grow and we can appreciate it even more. Because it's true in all of our relationships to some extent, we start to just get used to take our partners for granted or whatever, which is why in my work, I always emphasize couples need to have time together and time apart, time together and time
Mm.
apart. And this was my wife is Asian, and she was in China for the New Year to visit her family there, but she came back on Valentine's Day. And so it was a perfect Valentine's Day because we've been apart for a while.
I love that analogy to the computer crashing. I'm not sure if our younger viewers, listeners will understand what that means, but people back before the cloud, no, John could not just pull up to the cloud and get his chapter back. You would
That's
lose
right.
something if something happened in your home there. So,
And it's
uh,
gone forever. You can't
yeah.
recreate that.
Yeah, but like recreating, lost work. I know a lot of people are familiar with that. I've had the same thing happen myself, and it's very profound because it's not the same, and it's different, and in many ways it could be richer and more relevant to the present time, and that's all that matters, really.
Yeah, it's a phenomena of we as human beings will tend to take things for granted. And I now that I've learned about brain science and hormone science, it's actually in our brain to take things for granted so that we'll become bored and then seek out new things. We
Oh.
get a dopamine spike happens, something new and different. It's a danger or new and different. In any of those things will produce dopamine. So dopamine goes up, but immediately when dopamine goes up, receptor site for dopamine begins to close down. They all start shutting down so that you don't get the buzz from the same thing. You
Mm,
have to now do it again. I mean, imagine I just drank something that made dopamine. I go, oh, that was really good. I would never need to do anything again. You see, the reason you eat a cookie and then you want another cookie is because the dopamine goes up, it goes down, and now you're motivated. So they often call dopamine the motivation brain chemical. But the unfortunate thing is that my cell phone, this is for our younger generation, this produces more dopamine than looking at a human being and talking with them. Okay, unless it's a completely new person and they're saying something you've never heard before, it could compete with what's going on the phone. So literally, people have a hard time relating today because this produces this high level of dopamine that pushes your receptor sites further and further down over time. And so normal things like beautiful trees and gardening and spending time having a conversation, hard to do that now. Our brain just wants to go right to the high stimulation. I mean, I see it with me as well,
mm.
because I'm working on the computer all the time. And, my wife wants to have dinner with me and I will sit down to dinner, but there's still a little part of me goes, I want to go watch the news. Can't we watch the news and eat dinner together? And she said, no, we have to come have conversation. So what helps me bring myself back is not spending too much time watching TV or doing the phone. I mean, these are wonderful things of life. We want to have them. Just want to limit the time and then
Mm.
spend more time doing things that don't, or spend equal time doing things that don't have a lot of high dopamine stimulation. So that's the idea is you don't give up high dopamine stimulation. That's fun, but action and rest. Action is rest.
Well, in the case of relationships, we have a dilemma like never before in human history because now we have the option with the device in hand to get a steady stream of dopamine spiking, quick, exciting relationships, and then moving on quickly to the next one and living that pattern out. And we don't have to judge that as right or wrong. But how does someone navigate the profound pull of, not having to deal with anything in the manner of relationship dysfunction or negotiation or long-term strategizing, and instead can just flip the screen and then jump right back into another chemical hormone bath.
Absolutely. I mean, I was not social. For me, I don't spend a lot of time on social media, and then I discovered X. I mean, it's like the other social media for the younger kids, but for me, all the politics that's going on,
Mm.
whatever interest is, just one thing after another, after another, after another. I could just sit with that for hours and hours and hours, and I asked myself, well, what do I remember from that? What would I gain from that? What was the value I got from that? Very little. I can't even remember what I watched. Okay. It was so I limit my time. That's the whole thing. It's like, we have to have some discipline in our lives if we want to be fulfilled, balanced people. It's like ice cream. I'm 72 years old. My metabolism just doesn't metabolize ice cream, and immediately I'll start to gain a little weight. And so I have to have discipline. If I don't have that discipline, then I just avoid ice cream. I don't have it in my house because there's a tendency late at night, if I was watching a show, go get the ice cream, and so I don't want to be fighting myself all the time. So
Mm.
I just wander around. Where was the ice cream? Well, it's not here today, John.
I guess that would be the person who's in a nice relationship, signing off of the apps where they can get tempted if they want to scroll instead of sit down and have a nice dinner and talk to the same person for the 187th night in a row or the 1000th night.
That's right. 33 years with my wife, Bonnie. What did we do? Well, one of the things we did that we found as a couple, long-term couple, was making sure that one is we also made love. That was a real key thing on a regular basis. Never goes more than 7 days without having sex as a rule. You have to, you got to balance that. Uh, Even if you're sick, you still you do
Step
something.
up, man. Come
You
on.
got to you have to have body contact.
Mm.
We look at a lot of factors people don't realize, and one is we begin a relationship, we have so much love, we feel so much love because there's a lot of sex at that time, right? I mean, and why there's a lot of sex is because of high dopamine is being produced. When you have that same high dopamine from this, if it's a new person loving you and you have skin contact, uh, you're going to have high dopamine levels. That's because it's new and different.
Mm.
Now, when it's no longer new and different, the years pass, it's a few years pass, your wife's undressing, you don't even look, the first time you're sure looking. That's the dopamine of something new and different. And it's amplified when it has to do with male-female sexuality. Okay. When
Mm.
the sexuality is there, it's a big dopamine stimulator until it's not. And that's what happens, that relationships go that way. This is a very interesting concept nobody's talking about yet, is, all sex therapists, I'm a sex therapist as well, and all sex therapists will teach that if it starts to become routine and not as exciting, you need to have a date. Okay. The date is new and different, and the date excites her because she feels taken care of and you're succeeding and doing something
Mm.
for her. So that's romantic date. That can awaken the romantic attraction more. Generally speaking, the man's romantic attraction is based upon her interest in sex. Let's just keep it real here. It's the woman giving the message that I'm going to be open to you. That's what makes men rise up. See,
Mm.
think about, it's a woman's vulnerability, to depend on someone for love and support is being very vulnerable, because if they withdraw their love and support, it hurts. So when women are saying, I'm going to open myself up to you, which they do hormonally when they make love with you, they bond. And now their body says, I'm depending on you for love and support. Whether their mind says it or not, it doesn't matter. The body will say, I'm depending on you for love and support. So that's vulnerability. Well, when a woman can be vulnerable, allow herself to feel that vulnerable place, that's what turns men on. That's what turns men on. I think about, for the immature male, not yet fully brain developed, that doesn't happen till you're 28 years old biologically.
Oh.
We don't even develop the front part of the brain until that time. And we need education to get there. If you don't get educated, it never develops. So you'll see in primitive primitive tribes, it doesn't develop, but we have this education system that can potentially develop the prefrontal cortex. Otherwise, it doesn't develop as much. I'm a little off the subject, but let me just say what it looks like is at 28 years old, you have this ability to self-reflect and know who you are. And so let's say I'm teaching a class and everybody got up and left. I'd say, oh, I guess we need a bathroom break. Or I'm teaching a class and everybody got up and left. I go, oh, I didn't do a good job. Okay, I'm suddenly a bad teacher. I'm not a bad teacher. I know I'm a good teacher. So if everybody gets up and goes, I don't take it personally. It never has happened, of course. I'm making the exaggerated point, but it's called taking it personally. You have the potential to not take things personally only after your brain is fully developed. Okay, you
Mm.
don't have the potential to do that. Okay, that it means if somebody says something critical of you, you're going to feel bad.
Right.
Okay, that's what it is. It's going to affect you. It affects you less and less if you're growing in self-love and self-esteem and so forth. You have to develop that. But we're just talking about couples and keeping the interest going with the electricity. People want that and they don't have that. And how do you keep bringing that back? Well, the way you bring it back is to understand why you had it in the first place. The
Mm.
reason you had it in the first place is there was females, in the beginning, they're wanting, do you like me? Do you love me? Are you the kind of guy I want to be with? Are you going to stay with me? Will everything be okay? They have all this insecurity. Okay. Nope. I've never met a woman that doesn't. Okay. She gets up in the morning. She may not admit it to herself. She may not know it, but think of it not as a bad thing. Think of it as vulnerability. You
Hmm.
look in the mirror and you say, oh, do I look good today? Let me put on some makeup. And oh, hope people don't see this. Women are fixing themselves in the bathroom all the time. Where did that come from? Is I want to be loved. I want to be seen. I want to be adored. I want to be seen as beautiful. I want people to love me, like me, however you want to look at it. So after you're married, that you go through this stage where if she was to actually say to him, hey, Brad, do you still think I'm beautiful? And generally, maybe not you, but generally a man will say, of course. Now, of course is not the right answer.
Mm.
Of course, they did studies on whenever someone says of course, and it causes your cortisol level to spike. Because if I say, it's like, do you like my course? Of course. Why would you say that? You see, it's making the other person wrong for asking, for being vulnerable. So for men,
Wow.
it's all communication skills, little twists. And for women, if you're feeling a little insecure, and take it from an expert, every woman, whether she knows it or not, every day there's a little insecurity. That's why we put on makeup. That's why we put on outfits. That's why, and men don't have that kind of insecurity. Most men's insecurity has to do with, am I successful? Am I
Mm.
am I making a difference? Am I successful? Any
Mm.
man who leaves a relationship, when they come to me towards the end, people try to fix things. The man, I ask him, what's the problem? He says, no matter what I do, it's never enough to make her happy. He doesn't feel successful in making her happy. So his unhappiness comes from that. And her unhappiness comes completely like, I give and give and give, and I don't get back. I don't get the love I need. I don't get attention. He ignores me. Very few men come to me and say, my wife ignores me. They will say my wife's not interested in sex, but it's not like
Mm.
she ignores me. My wife's ignoring me. I go, good. I can go watch TV. I can go do something.
Right.
Yeah, it's not as big a deal. So we have to realize there's certain things here. So now I'm coming to a point, at many points along the way, but it was the idea of in sexual counseling, we want couples to go and do something new and different. And that's like a kind of like symptomatic help. It helps and helps a little bit. Even after a while, that becomes routine and boring. How many new restaurants can you go to? How many locations can you go to? So one of the solutions that Bonnie and I would do is we would have dinner with friends, because when you have dinner with friends, there's a lot to talk about. See, conversation, connection, because they're new and different. You see,
Mm.
Bonnie would say, tell them, John, about that thing that happened to you when we were in Africa, and so, but I can't, if I'm at home with my wife alone having dinner, I can't tell her that thing about Africa because we already had that conversation. See,
Right.
it's not new and different, but oh, tell them this and tell them this. And so there would be, I'd say, well, honey, the woman would ask Bonnie how you felt about that or what. So there's a conversation about new and different topics. We used to have friends that we would walk with. That was very important. Every Sunday we went for a good hour and a half walk with another couple, and they were like religiously reading the New York Times. So basically, we they would bring up the New York Times, what's happening in the world, and we'd all talk about it. So we brought in that sort of new and different energy. And that's different from if I was reading the New York Times and talking to my wife about it. It's somebody else doing it. See, you bring in this other energy that's non-sexual. See, the sexual thing is a different story. You don't want to bring in the sexual, ideally, you don't bring in the sexual energy. I don't think it allows your soul to grow, one, but two, jealousies come up. I mean, it's just like it's complicated when you bring somebody else in. It's complicated just enough. And I don't, for me, when being remarried and having a family of daughters, that's very challenging. It's something, there's another person they did not pick. And so there's a challenge there. Relationships are challenging. They're all here to teach us how to love and forgive. But I'm going the long way around making one point. Okay. And that is when new and different occurs, you get stimulation and you feel attraction. What is being stimulated when dopamine gets produced? In males, dopamine raises testosterone.
Mm.
And females, dopamine, if she feels safe, it will raise testosterone in a woman if she doesn't feel safe. But when women feel safe and they have new and different, their estrogen levels rise. Okay, this is basic biology. This is, these are facts. Okay, when you get to actual reality of biological difference. So when a woman feels safe and there's, I take her to a new hotel, we sleep there, sex is going to be different than in the same old bedroom, right? So you got a different environment. She's not thinking about kids. She's not thinking about housework. She's not thinking about the plumbing. She's not thinking about who's going to call, all those things are in a woman's mind. So when she can feel in the moment and feeling safe in the moment, I don't have to do anything. You have to realize where women get caught up in our world today, and I'll explain it later, is they tend to be overwhelmed. I have so much to do. I have so much to do. I can't just relax. And in a playful way, we don't require safety in order to be aroused. Okay. We could be having, we mean men, is that if a woman is interested and open to us, someone we love, my gosh, if she's in the mood, every man's in the mood. It's just when they're not in the mood and a guy's in the mood, because we sort of have a biological thing going on, which is we need to have sex biologically. We get erections, okay, and we want to use them. We're supposed to use them and connect. That's a very, very biological thing. So we'll want to have sex, but as we grow in our ability to feel connected to our partner, that means familiarity sets in. We care about them. We know them. We're going to stop wanting sex if she's not in the mood. That's a bummer. See, it's the younger, immature male, hey, let's just have sex even if she's not in the mood. But once you start really connecting, the whole point is to make her happy, right? So you want to connect with her and bring her to greater levels of happiness and joy and feel your love for her. Well, if she's not in the mood, we kind of just, we get turned off. Men lose their energy towards their partner. So that's one of the things that stops it. But another thing is simply the newness goes away. So you can have the newness, that helps, a different environment, a different setting, that helps. But even that becomes, over the years, I'm talking 33 years, that becomes a little challenging because there's no longer that much new and different. I can go anywhere in the world and it's not new and different. I've been everywhere. Yeah. What do you do? Okay, so then you analyze what caused that excitement and trap is the dopamine gets produced. So imagine a life without all that dopamine. Why did the dopamine make you attracted to your partner and her attracted to you? Because dopamine increases testosterone in men. And when women feel safe, it increases estrogen in women. Like for a woman to climax, she needs to double her healthy estrogen levels. Hey, this is basic reality, not a man. To have an erection, we need to have testosterone levels. And when our testosterone levels go down, the interest in sex, the motivation to have sex, the perseverance to have sex, to do the things you have to do to get sex, all that stuff will start to go down without testosterone. Because I have in my 70s, I have lots of friends, and I talk about my sex life, which is fantastic. It always has been. And they all say, "Oh, John, you're making a big deal on nothing. I've kind of been there and done it. Don't want to bother with it. I don't really care." Well, you have low testosterone, man. You're going to die soon, and they will. They've all died. Not all have died. They're dying off. And we know that when men's testosterone levels go to a very low level, they die. This is the insurance companies will say this. When a man retires, he doesn't work anymore. His testosterone, depending upon what his work is, some men will retire from their job they hate and job that they like. Okay, but they're still doing something. They have to get up and do something to be of service to others. You can't just sit and play. You can't watch X all the time. You can't watch TV all the time. You can't just do enjoyable things all the time. The enjoyment of serving where you have to do it, whether you like it or not. It's nice if you get to the point where you like it, but you still have to get up and do it because you said you're going to do it. So that produces testosterone. When men retire, they have 2 years, 3 years before they die. This is insurance company data. Okay, we're not talking my ideas here. This is their data. They figure that in. And that's bio, we think of how heart attacks and everything, we think of that as cholesterol in many cases, but people don't know this. The actual data on cholesterol and heart attacks is half of the men who die of a heart attack have higher than average cholesterol, and half of the men who die of a heart attack have lower cholesterol. It's cholesterol. That means it's not that significant. There's some significance because other researchers will point out that it's not the level of cholesterol, it's whether your cholesterol is oxidized cholesterol. And oxidized cholesterol has it's not good for your body. And it only oxidizes when you have chronic stress. And now any man with chronic stress has chronic low testosterone. Most people don't know that. Any man with chronic stress has low testosterone. Even if you're sitting there in front of a TV set, bored and not motivated and passive. My grandfather used to sit in his chair with his big glasses and just watch football all day long. And he died. Okay, so basically, while he doesn't look stressed, his body is producing cortisol all the time, which he's being relieved of by the stimulation on the TV. But he's just not in himself. But the body will be producing cortisol until the adrenal glands we become adrenally fatigued. So all of those things in a man comes from lowering testosterone. And for women, all their stress, when you feel like any stressed woman, her estrogen levels are too low. Women are a little bit more complicated. If they're still cycling, their source of their stress biologically, the chemicals are going on, is after ovulation. If she's stressed, it's primarily she's not making enough progesterone. So she still needs to be making estrogen, but she needs to be making progesterone as well. We don't have that complication. They're on a cycle. It's changing all the time. For us, it's just up and down. If it's up, it's up. Testosterone goes up, you're not stressed. Testosterone goes down, you are stressed. Now, what allows us to be masculine and more powerful is when your testosterone's up and your estrogen is up. That's called wisdom. You get these guys who are successful. Finally, they figure out not to be immature anymore and they have maturity. Maturity takes time. Okay. So it takes time. And ironically, sexual maturity takes time for women. See, we have this sexual mature. I mean, we're ready to go sexually, but we lose it. And we don't want to lose that. We want to keep our testosterone levels up. If you look at bringing back the passion, this one point I was trying to get to, I'm there now. Dopamine produces testosterone in men. If a woman feels safe, dopamine produces estrogen in a woman. Over time in a relationship, you're at 5 years in your marriage. Well, it's usually around 6-7 years, but it can be sooner with the younger generation. And I'll explain that. But what happens is you're not going to get the free dopamine. You try to find it with
hotels, whatever.
Yeah, you do all that. You try it. But the bottom line is you're not going to get the free dopamine the older you get. But what did you need the dopamine for anyway? To make testosterone and to make estrogen in women. And you can make testosterone and estrogen without dopamine. And you do that by learning these skills that I'm teaching about what women need to make estrogen and what men need to make testosterone. I gave an example for men which is we need to be working. If we're not working, and work always involves rebuilding your testosterone, but to build your testosterone, I'm speaking from my experience. My testosterone at 72 years old is 50% higher than when I was a young man, and sometimes 100% higher. So it doubles. Okay, this is not common, but I'm like an expert on how to bump up testosterone, and also for women to how bump up their estrogen. This is my, life's work. So, for example, continuing to do a job that you work. Now, think
Mm.
about the cycle of testosterone: action and rest, action and rest. I work hard, but I have to have time to rest. That's the most important thing. Then I have to have time to grow in maturity: action, rest, intimacy. Action, where I'm building I'm using testosterone. I'm making and using testosterone. Then I need rest to rebuild testosterone. Then from a place of having rebuilt testosterone, I have intimacy. What is intimacy is estrogen goes up. And intimacy with a woman, for example, is love and loving your wife, taking care of her in a good way, in the way I'm going to suggest. But that raises her estrogen. So when you're making her estrogen go up, your estrogen will always go up.
Mm.
But if you're trying to make your wife happy, but you don't have your testosterone, it will be exhausting. And every man knows that experience of, my wife needs something. I just don't have, I have magnets in my butt, is the way I describe it. And that's called, he needs his time to have his rest, and then he can miss his partner and come to his partner. Now, but the problem with it is the brain gets a little confused, because normally in the era of evolution with survival, in order to be alive, you had to work every day, right? And the
Mm.
sun went down and you would rest. And when you would rest, you'd rebuild your testosterone, and then you have sex with your wife. Okay, that would be your cycle, and take care of her needs and so forth, and be happy to do that. But if you just, what we have is so much convenience in our life that our lives really aren't that challenging as men, a lot of men. It's convenience. And that's part of retirement, is the convenience of playing golf all the time, right? So as opposed to once a week or whatever. So you have this convenience of doing what you like to do rather than what you have to do. When you do what you have to do, I'm setting a goal and now I
Mm.
have to do this. That's making testosterone. Well, what happens is, all it takes is for a man, and this is what happened to men during the lockdown, which is extremely unhealthy for men. And it's still affecting me, to be quite honest. I just don't like going places as much as I used to.
I
This,
hear you. Yeah. I like wearing my mask now to the sporting event or the airplane because I was so used to it. Now I'm like a germ freak.
yeah, yeah. It's just, so for me, it's, oh, I want to just do everything on the computer or whatever, and instead of going, and I can get everything from Amazon. So I didn't want to go shopping, and one of my daughters, she just orders food from the grocery store, doesn't even go to the grocery store.
Mm.
Okay. So this is not healthy for us. See, we are
Mm.
social beings. We're energetic beings. If you just spend a time with a few people and talk with them, you always feel better. Okay, it's just a matter of people interacting. Like I mentioned with my wife and I, just having friends over and social gatherings. If you go to all of the blue zones where people live to 100 years old, the universal thing is not what they eat.
Mm.
It's social activity and walking. They have to walk places and social activity. We're social beings. Doesn't mean we always have to be social all the time, but prolonged isolation is unhealthy, very unhealthy. And literally, I've lost a lot of my motivation, and
Mm.
that just to go out and, oh, I'm going to go drive and go fixing something at the house. I'm going to go to the hardware store and look at things and go to the cashier and interact with it. No, I'll just order it online now. I'm just going to stay at home and have things delivered to me. This convenience, and I'm working against it. Okay, I became aware of it, and now I'm working against it.
Mm.
But the tendency is there.
Hmm.
It's like you broke your arm. It has to be fixed. This was a tragic thing and for our children, it's unmeasurable. We don't know what's happened to them. Okay, this is really, only we can see is how many suicides. The highest level of suicide on the planet is young teenagers.
Mm.
Okay, they're really, really messed up by this, because the most important time we need to socialize is as children. The first 7 years, we need primarily our parents. And then the next, we need, we're more like very, very social, but we have our parents. But then we're more independent as teenagers. And that's really when we need to have boys need to compete with boys and girls need to talk with girls and do girl things. And we don't have that. Everybody's isolated. I looked at my own grandkids, and the boy did really well because he was on a computer. He was very impersonal. That's very testosterone producing and dopamine producing, which in the beginning produces testosterone. But the girl had problems, and now she's straight A's. She's the head cheerleader and all this stuff. But she had problems with her academics because she didn't have the social interaction. And I'm not saying this is universal to everybody, but certainly I'm making the point is for everybody, social is very, very important. And to develop masculinity, many parents are asking me the question, my boy seems very feminine. He's becoming more feminine. He's soft. He cries a lot. He gets, what do I do? I say, you get him with a mentor that's not his father, somebody who is a masculine male, who could be a coach. He could be because my background is karate, it would be, some kind of martial arts, boxing. My mother had the good sense to put me with these kind of males so I could bond with masculinity. Otherwise, how do I know I'm a man? When you go through puberty as a male, your body is designed to make 10 times more testosterone. See, we're like little girls when we're kids. Our brains are different from the first 2 years. We get a surge of testosterone that gives us the masculine brain. Now, a lot of boys are very confused today. We see about being masculine, and that's because of the toxicity or the environment of the womb when your brain was developing. There's research backing this up, okay, which is that we need the pesticides, atrazine and frogs actually make male frogs into females. So, it's happening, but also certain stresses, certain toxins. We don't know it all about it, but we do know that the male brain doesn't fully develop many of the masculine genes. You see that the difference biology between men and women, the difference in biology of men and women is this Y chromosome. Okay, it's like what? So the Y chromosome produces only 23 genes that men have. As men, we have all the female genes. We all have everything a woman has, we have, but then we have in our development these 23 genes that override various female genes to make us masculine. So some of these children, they don't get the activation of those male genes to override their female genes. And that's the word for it, it's override, to shut them off so that other expressions happen. So this is the difference between masculine and feminine, so that we can have males to make babies from the outside and women make babies on the inside. So this is the biology of how we're set up. So to get those male genes activated when a boy doesn't have that, you can pretty much look at his testosterone levels and see that's happening, and also his testicles. Many boys are now being born with one of the testicles doesn't even drop. This is another thing that's happening. What they need is they need to have more, particularly in adolescence, they need more male support, and they need adult male support. That's very important, that there's supervised. If you don't have supervised support, you'll see this in the more lower income environments. The boys will find a gang, okay, and that's how they develop their masculinity, because there's power associated with that. It's just negative power as opposed to positive power to make yourself better at something, to achieve goals and so forth. So mentorship is very, very important. Finding teachers at that time, just really, really important. Okay, so back to finding the passion and get in your relationship. How do you build the testosterone of masculinity and build the femininity of a woman? If she's producing more estrogen than you will be attracted to her. If you're producing more testosterone than her, she will be attracted to you. She wants to be close to you. She misses you. She's happy with you. It's all about biology. Biology controls the hormones of attraction. This is biology. This is testosterone. Your testosterone goes up I don't know. I don't drink coffee. I took many years to go off of it. I was addicted to it. So I thought, I don't want any addictions in my life. I'm not
Mm,
against coffee. It has many benefits. If you can stay focused and goal oriented and testosterone without it, the coffee will give you a big boost of testosterone. Oh my gosh.
mm,
Because I drank this cup of coffee and then I was immediately euphoric because huge amount of dopamine gets produced. Now, years ago, in the beginning, it was great, but it tapered off. Everything gradually tapers off
mm.
dopamine. So I had it the other day and I was like, huge, big surge of testosterone. I was ready to go start writing a book and starting this company. I said, hold on here. it was, but it's very powerful if you're not having habituated to it. By the way, that process is called habituation. We
Mm,
become habituated to our partners where they're
mm.
just new and it's not new. I can look out at the beautiful Mount Tam from my window and when I was a younger man and bought this house, people go, "Oh my God, the mountain is so beautiful. You have such a beautiful view." And I spent years looking for a house with a view of the mountain. Now
Yeah,
I rarely look at it. Actually,
yeah.
there's a tree in the way. So this is this way life is.
Mm,
However, when it comes to the male-female relationship, nature has given us, God, I would say, but people could say nature, our biology gives us this uh, potential for women to be in harmony with their body and raise their estrogen. That's called anything a woman does that lowers stress is raising her estrogen. Why? Because anytime a woman is stressed, her estrogen is low or her progesterone is low, depending what time of the month it is. And anytime a man is stressed, his testosterone is going down and his estrogen is going up.
mm,
For example, and this is a mind blowing for people, they always assume that anger was high testosterone.
mm,
Well, anger is testosterone levels dropping and high estrogen. Any emotion is estrogen. You can't have an emotion without estrogen. That's
mm,
the fuel of emotion. And the fuel of testosterone is objectivity. Okay, logic, objectivity, no big deal. I mean, this is what we say all the time as men, no big deal. And particularly when our wives are being emotional, what's our reaction? No big deal. Don't worry about it. Hey, you can just do this, solve the problem, and realize there is no problem. So there's are two ways for us to build testosterone is, okay, do something to solve the problem, builds testosterone, will lower our stress, or there is no problem. I've already solved it by minimizing it. See, we have
mm,
strategies as men, some more productive than others. But what happens is, let's say you're now in the shutdown and you're not working hard, and your body remembers, well, if I just sit and watch TV, I feel good, and I rebuild my testosterone. Well, you don't rebuild your testosterone relaxing on the couch, watching TV, reading a book, doing a hobby, working out in the gym, any of these things. If it's going to help you, the relaxation after working out rebuilds testosterone.
Oh, so you
Relaxation.
got to do something first, solve the problem, deal with the challenge, then go chill and rebuild testosterone. But that's quite distinct from someone like grandpa watching football all day, which is arguably a testosterone boosting activity if you've just returned from football practice and now you're watching film. Huge difference, right?
Huge difference. You've got to be doing something. And then you rest and you
You
rebuild.
earn your rest.
But your brain remembers that resting rebuilds my testosterone. So
Mm,
you think you're doing the right thing, but you've got magnets on your butt and you can't get up. Now, what can
mm,
get you up, by the way, is if your wife needs something from you and you actually do something physical to do something for her, that may take a lot of willpower because you got magnets on your butt. And
mm,
people, it's a funny example because I try to help women understand men when they're passive. And I say, imagine to your wife, and she's feeling overwhelmed, and we have to do this, and we have to do this, and I still haven't done that. All right. And I'm not saying women are that way all the time, but that tends to be the number one stressor for women in my experience with women is feeling overwhelmed or symptom of stress is when they're feeling that way. Imagine saying to your wife, honey, just relax and sit down. She can't. They actually did a research study on this. Harvard did this study, not just moderately stressed people. That was just people. Okay. They didn't say, are you stressed? Because people live in sort of a sea of adrenaline these days
mm.
or stress. Then women sit down, they put electrodes on their head, and they measure what happens in the brain when they relax. And for women in this study, their brains would become more active. And you ask them, okay, what's going on? I'm thinking of all the things I should be doing while I'm sitting here
Mm.
doing nothing. Okay, so doing nothing is hard for women to do. Us, so the men, what happened? They put the electrodes in the brain, and the brain activity began to disappear. We've been settling down, 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 down. And they said, "What are
Mm.
you thinking?" And the men said, "Nothing." Okay, so or maybe there's some little activity, but nothing
Mm.
like the females. So I always tell this in my talks to women. I say, so when your husband says, when you say, "What are you feeling?" and he says nothing, he's telling you the truth. But again, in a communication technique, I always like to give little hacks, lots and lots of biohacks or brain hacks, whatever it is, communication hacks. If you say to your husband, and this is a real issue for many women, is like, what's going on? Are you upset about something? What are you feeling? Which is a hard thing for most men to respond to. But she says, "What are you feeling?" He'll say, "No, it's nothing. It's no big deal," or he'll just say nothing. She can't believe that because that's not her experience.
Mm.
Okay? She's overwhelmed. She's always thinking something, feeling something, maybe can't put in words always, but it's there. He says it's nothing. And then she says, she tries to get him to talk more, and he doesn't have much to say. Let's just leave it at that. She feels annoyed and irritated because she feels disconnected.
Mm.
Communication is so, so important. To the connection is an estrogen producer.
Mm.
Connections an estrogen producer. So when you disconnect thinking about something or not thinking, they feel the disconnection, particularly if they were saying something or whatever. So all she has to do, and this problem gets solved, is she says, first of all, never say to a man, "What are you feeling?" Say to him, "What are you thinking?" And he'll say nothing.
Mm.
And then she says, or she, that's enough. Is I'm just thinking, I'm not thinking about anything. And she would understand that. But here's the issue I'm trying to get to, which is the woman says, she's having a conversation with you. Most men can relate to this. At a certain point, she's saying something, and you start thinking about what she's saying. So it's like the connection goes away temporarily. You don't notice any difference, but she notices the difference. So she feels this sort of panic, and that's why she's asking you, "What are you thinking? What are you feeling?" Now, instead of saying, "What are you thinking? What are you feeling?" she has to realize, I want to penetrate him because I'm feeling insecure.
Mm.
I'm feeling, oh, is he judging me? Is he criticizing me? Is he not there for me? Why is he suddenly he was there for me and now he's gone? See, women notice this. So all she has to say, my daughter Lauren figured this one out. It's one of her classes at marsvenus.com, and which I highly recommend to women. And but it was like, just say, "So you're thinking about that?" And a man will immediately say, "Yes." Or you're thinking about what I just said.
Mm.
And you will say, "Yes." And as soon as you hear yes, you'll be fine. But it's whether women admit it or not, because some women are they don't know what's really going on inside. They're too masculine, but they panic, they stress when a man is too quiet. There's a number
Mm-hmm.
one, this is why the cave idea with Mars Venus,
Mm.
he went to work, he needs this cave time, he's not going to be intimate, he's going to be disconnected, he needs to rebuild his testosterone. Then, and then the way you can build intimacy at that point is ask him to do something for you after he's been watching TV or whatever his cave activity, maybe he's on a computer playing a computer game, give it 20, 30 minutes. That's generally what a man needs. Then what you can do is, unless he's really stressed out, but basically give him some time to breathe in his own space, do what he wants to do, have a hobby, fixing the carburetor, he wants to fix something, wants to solve a problem that they didn't finish at work, whatever it is, but he's relaxed at home doing it. Then you say to him, how do you get him out of the cave? Because women ask me all the time, well, you wrote about the cave. I realize now how so helpful. He's not mad at me. Because a lot of women,
Mm.
you're in your cave, it's because we don't love them. I get it. He's not mad at me. But then he stays in the cave. He doesn't come out because once you're in your cave, you're doing something feels good. And so if why would I stop doing something that feels good unless it's something that needs to be done? It was if there's a leak in the roof, I've got the energy to do it right away.
Mm.
It's just no
And it
problem.
feels good.
And it feels good to do it,
Yeah.
right? Yes, but you need to have the motivator. Women don't understand that about men, is there has to be a fire to put out or a leaky roof or a child needing help. There has to be something out there calling us, and then we feel the motivation to go. Women don't have that. You see, they can give birth to babies that can't communicate what they need. So they have these little antennas like, do they
Mm.
need this? Do they need this? Whatever could go wrong, they're thinking about.
Mm.
And this is the nature of women. Whatever can go wrong, they think about. And that becomes a problem for us men, because if they're thinking what can go wrong, we may get the message that, oh, you don't trust me.
Right.
So when a woman can trust a man, that's a huge testosterone producer.
For
Huge
the man.
for the
Yeah.
man, of course. And to trust a man, try trusting your husband's driving around. He's he going to get us there when he's lost? Okay, will he get us there? That was an old joke when I wrote Men Are From Mars, is
Mm.
men don't ask for directions. Because if I ask for direct, no, I can do it myself. And men do ask for directions once they realize I can't do it myself. But for the go-to for a man, if I can do it myself, do it myself. The go-to for a woman is we can do this together. So her reaction is, okay, well, seems like you're lost. So I'll ask this stranger over here.
No
And
offense.
is this guy, you think he knows more than me? Even though logically he lives in the neighborhood, he might be able to help out.
Mm.
But still, it's like, oh, you're going to trust this guy. You don't trust me. And this whole idea of being trusted is when I look at one of the primary sources of testosterone for men, like right now, you are trusting me to give something of value to your listeners. That gives me the energy. I just came back from Ireland where they pay me a lot of money to fly across the ocean. Well, they pay for my ticket. I go first class. I feel fantastic, not just because first class, because that also looking at boring. It feels good because they're paying me. And why does paying me make me feel really good? It's because they trust me to do a good
Mm.
job. It's the emotional impact. It's not just the physical part of reality. It's the message that I'm being appreciated, I'm being accepted, drawn in, and I'm being trusted. Well, that's the biggest testosterone producers there are. Anytime you're like, if what you are accepted or appreciated for doing something, not just I appreciate you for doing nothing. I, I appreciate you for doing something, being conscious that you made a difference in my life. And that's what women have to develop now, the ability to identify what is he doing for me that's of value for me. Because so many women today are saying, what do I need a man for?
Mm.
Because our biology, our history, our culture, primarily, if we bring it in from the past, you need a man to make money. And now that you can make money, it diminishes your dependence on him to make money. See, it's like, or it neutralizes, imagine you can stay home. Imagine like my mother, she wanted, until her children grew up, she wanted to be a mother for 7 children. That was her dream. She got her dream come true. She got a man who could support her. They didn't have emotional problems because she
Mm.
was getting her dream come true. He
Mm.
work every day, he came
A little
home.
busy with that too.
Yeah. So what was it you said?
A little busy with 7.
Yeah, with a little,
She didn't have time to get frustrated about her relationship dynamics,
that's
probably.
right. That's exactly it. Okay, so now here was the dynamic. Is it 5 boys, 6 boys, by the way? Imagine that. My poor sister. But see, dad was not just the provider, he was also the policeman.
Mm.
All she had to do when we weren't cooperating is, I'm going to tell your father, okay, we'll cooperate right away. That's the disciplinary. This is so certainly she's going to feel, oh my goodness, he's always helping me because I can use my dad card anytime I want. So she's appreciating that. She feels backed up. She feels support. And why am I emphasizing that? Because for estrogen to go up, estrogen only goes up when you're in a situation where you need help and somebody helps you. That's it. Estrogen goes up when you depend on someone for help and they help you. Testosterone goes up when somebody needs help and you're the solution, or you need help and you can do it yourself. This is the two dynamics of who we are as men and
Mm.
women. Now, this is confusing for some because some women are listening, well, I want to solve problems for other people,
Mm.
until you don't. How many women are stressed out, overwhelmed, having to do too much? How
And
many men?
insisting on doing too much because
Yes.
they're stuck on their male side, as you detail in Beyond Mars and Venus. And so they are dismissive of their partner who may be making a concerted effort to be of service in a desperate attempt to raise testosterone. But now they're stuck in their camps, I guess. One's watching TV with magnets on the butt, and the woman is running around harried, not trusting the partner. And I should do a little aside. We're speaking in these dynamics of the typical male-female partnership, but I imagine everything applies to same-sex couples as well.
It does. It does. It's just my expertise is heterosexual, but same-sex couples have a male and female side inside of them. And from my limited experience with them, the biology is the same. Okay, women, gay, straight, whatever, they all need estrogen, otherwise they're stressed, and they all have testosterone, and they may have a little bit more, but it's not testosterone that lowers their stress. It's the estrogen or the progesterone that causes their stress on the biological level. I mean, literally, biologically, if a woman makes testosterone, she doesn't have testicles to make it, right? She makes it from her adrenal gland. So she makes testosterone out of progesterone. So her progesterone levels biologically go down when she's making too much testosterone. Now, it's not that women, you understand that? It's like she's got this progesterone that it gets produced, not when she's dependent on someone, it gets produced when she's doing what she likes to do. Okay, when a woman likes doing something, it can be social bonding or self-bonding. Either of those two things will produce progesterone. So she's going to a job that she doesn't like, it's going to zap all of her progesterone. She'll have PCOS, which causes infertility. We see so many women with progesterone problems that can't get pregnant. But you can also have inability to get pregnant because you don't have enough estrogen. Estrogen has to double. Your estrogen levels, a woman needs to generally be about 10 times more than the average man. And then it needs to double to 20 times more than the average man in order to ovulate or in order to have an orgasm. So anyway, back to this story is I want to finish that first point real quickly. Dopamine is going to go away. So you want to continue experience the attraction, the interaction, to the lovemaking will be wonderful. That's what it's called, making love. It makes the love back. It brings it back again. You grow in it. So what's that about? You have to culture a relationship and a lifestyle that gives you opportunity and support if you're a woman to raise your estrogen, and if you're a man to raise your testosterone. Now, if you're in a gay relationship, I don't have a lot of my solutions aren't focused there. You've got both two women. So generally one tends to be more masculine personality things, and the other one tends to be more feminine. Okay, that's good. Take time to playfully reverse roles, because the woman who's way on her masculine side, she's going to need extra nurturing on her female side. So they do tend to, in the beginning, have more harmony, although there's some research showing that a lot of violence goes on in gay relationships that you would never think of. All I can say is I read that on the internet, and so these are studies where they do data and statistics. That's not my expertise, but I think that could at least there's a lot of violence in heterosexual relationships too, and that can immediately go away if we balance our hormones with each other, use each other to balance hormones. Now, let me give you a practical example of that. Maybe a quick story, just a little illustrate. I was on a cruise, and a woman was kicked off the boat for being violent. Okay. Most people don't think of women as violent. And I heard the husband talking about her, and I could see why she became violent. Okay. It was completely, but first of all, they're both drinking too much. And then he puts her down, and he keeps making fun of her and dismissing her. And I don't think his intent is so bad. He doesn't understand. He thinks it's ridiculous. Women will complain. You looked at that, that's silly. That's so ridiculous. You're always so jealous. Some kind of conversation like that will stir up a woman's vulnerability, goes to negativity, or it goes to positivity. She's an emotional woman. She was drinking a lot of beer, which makes her more emotional. Man or woman makes you more emotional. And it's an estrogen producer. So if a man has a violent tendency, he shouldn't drink beer. Okay,
it's the vulnerability. You're vulnerable to anger rather than vulnerable to sharing your feelings when you say positive or negative vulnerability.
it means
Yeah. Or
positive.
violence or whatever.
The distinction there is to be vulnerable is to be affected by someone.
So
See,
vulnerable is not always positive, people. We always hear we got to be more vulnerable, be more vulnerable. No, not if you're drinking too much and engaged in toxic conversation.
Right. The flip vulnerable is basically saying I'm giving you the power to affect me. So
Mm,
you can bring me to heights of joy and happiness, or you can really knock me down. And any woman who is emotional, some women, their personality types and so forth, we have different personality types, but some personality types are going to be more emotional. These women can easily be pushed into extreme negativity or extreme positivity. And men have the power to do that. I can bring out the best in her. I can bring out the worst of her. Same thing with women. Women have the power to bring out the best in a man, bring out the worst in a man. If we want to get rid of violence in relationships, which
mm,
does occur and it's horrible, it's ugly, it's terrible. I don't like to talk too much about it, but it is what happens is typically there's a feeling of invalidation of the woman, okay, and a feeling of defensiveness on the man. He wants
mm,
to be right, and she wants the right to express what she feels. There's a need in women to express what they feel, and that's the emotional side needs to be heard. And when the man hears it, he takes it personally, and he then first he tries to solve it. Okay, well, you shouldn't
mm,
feel that way. Well, you're making a big deal out of this. Well, you're completely wrong about that, or you're being too needy. He'll come back with his negativity, which only inflames her negativity, which then inflames his. So that's the energetic dynamics of typically male female negative interaction. What can happen if couples understand, if men can understand, whenever I'm angry, it will only get worse.
oof.
Whenever I'm angry, there's no way she's going to be able to trust me, appreciate me, accept anything I say. Because, if you speak words, you only speak words that are going to have a positive effect, right? I'm not talking to have no effect. I want a positive effect. So if you're talking and you realize if I'm angry, nothing you say will be heard by her. She has an automatic defensive reaction and it won't ever change. You can't change it. You see, women have a whole history of this is genes. This is gene. I can't say it will never change. Some women can do it. My mother had the ability to do it. My father would get angry sometimes and she would just do nothing. She told
Mm,
me later as I grew up, she says, when your father gets angry, sometimes I just stand there and I just feel this huge energy flow through me of love to him. Now, but my mother was a very special lady. She was an energy healer. Uh,
mm,
she had a esoteric spiritual bookstore. I was doing yoga at 3 years old. I became a celibate monk. I was a meditator my whole life. So, I have a different perspective on these things but I've never seen a woman who can, they'll shut down because historically when men get angry, people die. That's just a reality. When men get angry, people die. You don't feel safe when somebody is angry. And now safety is maybe at least in our awareness, at least 10 times more in a woman's awareness. You see, and it's also part of being feminine is protecting your child. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? What can go wrong? It's kind of like what's happened to our culture where they're constantly giving us things to worry about. It puts us
mm,
in fight or flight. And what we have to realize is that women have a greater tendency in fight or flight in order to have a bias towards negativity. So do men. Men have the
mm,
bias. I'm just saying because women have more emotion, their biology is more around estrogen. Whenever you have uh, danger, then your brain loses its capacity to see the possibilities of good. Okay, it basically um, we have a prefrontal cortex here, and the left one only looks at what's positive. Everything's cool, everything's okay, no problem. The right prefrontal cortex looks at every problem that what could go wrong and what has gone wrong and remembers what has gone wrong.
mm,
And that's the right prefrontal cortex. So whenever we're stressed, the right prefrontal cortex becomes more active. There's a bias towards seeing negativity. It's amazing the brain will change. And this is why in politics we say if somebody's making money from a policy, money is one of the biggest biases there is. Or I was just hearing from somebody who said that, well, I didn't know that when doctors prescribe certain drugs, they get huge bias. They get a huge amount of money from the
mm,
pharmaceutical. They actually get paid by the pharmaceutical every time you promote their drug. They get
mm,
money. Uh, Most people didn't know when you went on the ventilators, which nobody survived except for a few, they got $100,000. Anytime a
Oof.
hospital put you on the ventilator, you got an extra $100,000. It was a cash. These are horrible realities, but there's a bias that takes place. Well, oh, we can put them on the ventilator. That's my opinion. I just, but maybe it will help them. Maybe it will save them. The brain has this bias thing where it rationalizes anything to
Mm.
get money.
Mm.
It's an amazing thing. So back to getting us out of the stress mode. That's the most important thing. I want to give some practical tips. Understanding that any message I give to a woman that says she can trust me is going to raise her estrogen.
Mm.
Okay, so if I'm an angry guy, she can't trust me. She's
Mm.
scared to walk on eggshells. Now I know
Yeah,
many.
John, you said that today's female, her biggest fear in primal times, it was, getting attacked by a predator and needing the man for protection. And now this one really hit me hard when you said that the female's biggest fear of today is her partner's anger.
Yeah, yeah, and the more we're on our female side, the easier angry we get. See, there's this thing happening in our culture, which is simultaneously, we've got pesticides coming into our body. The effects of plastics is causing
Mm.
all of us to have endocrine disruptors. It
Mm.
disrupts our hormone system. So men start making more estrogen than testosterone. Testosterone's going down. That's one side of it. Life is always a dark and a light. The other side of it, I believe, is a shift in consciousness. We are also much more aware. We're more conscious. We see the world having lots of problems, but actually things are better than they've ever been on one level. At
Mm.
least 3 years ago, things were getting better and better. Crime has dramatically gone down. The standard of living, the amount of starvation on the planet has, went to 1%, and that changed again. But it was better than it's ever been. And when it was better than it was ever been, then suddenly people are complaining more. Why are they complaining more? Is because we're more aware. You
Mm.
see, when you have it good, then you can notice the bad. If everything's just bad, you don't notice the bad. That's just the way life is. It's because life got better. Now we can look at the past and go, well, that was really bad. That was really bad. But at the time, that was the best we could be. So there's a higher consciousness that's happening now. And with that, this is the good side. Now, the plastics are making us all shutting down certain neurons and everything, genes, but that's happening biologically. But on the other side of it, as a man, I'm very aware of my female qualities, and I'm very aware. Like I love being a father. I love making foreplay with my wife. I love taking care of her more so than men in the past would do. In the past, men didn't even care about a woman's orgasm. Okay, now every man asks a woman, "Did you have an orgasm?" What's he asking? He wants to feel he was successful making you
Mm.
happy. They never even asked that in the past. They didn't even think about that. They didn't even know how to do it. They didn't
Mm.
do foreplay. It was just so. This is people don't know the huge shift of consciousness where now we can be aware of our masculine side and our feminine side. We want to express that. That was the 60s, and women now going, hey, I want to have a masculine side too. I want to be free to solve problems, be on my own, not be so dependent on someone. That's great. But then you go too far that direction, you kind of go, gee, why am I stressed all the time? Check your hormones. And what the hormones, if you're a woman, it would be I'm in a relationship, many relationships, not just with a man, but
Mm.
I have girlfriends, I have people I can talk to, I have children I can take care of. It's not your own, but helping out others. Or having a pet. These are all different forms of love. That's nurturing love, unconditional love. I try to I work in the workplace to support myself, but I don't have to do it all myself. I have support. See, support is relationship is all forms of support. And when women feel I'm surrounded by support, and at part of the month I get to do what I enjoy doing, I like doing, now you've got healthy hormone levels. When hormone levels aren't at the right balance for that particular person, which could be a
Mm.
bit different for different people, but if you're stressed, you're not taking care of your hormone levels. And generally for women, in my experience, and if you look at the statistics, it's low estrogen or low progesterone and
Mm.
not low testosterone. And even when a woman has low testosterone, which most women as they're getting older, they do have low testosterone compared to when they're younger. What is the cause of that? Women make testosterone as a response to high estrogen. Okay, so you can look again biologically when a woman's estrogen goes really high, her brain releases luteinizing hormone, the same hormone that surges men's testosterone, and her testosterone goes higher. So that's the healthy way for a woman to have high testosterone. So there's no
Mm.
woman who has low testosterone and has healthy progesterone and estrogen.
Mm.
It doesn't exist. So yeah, you can take testosterone, it can create some sex desire, no question about it, but you're not addressing the cause of the problem, which is the stress in your body because you're not making enough estrogen. Giving a
Mm.
woman testosterone does not lower her stress levels, or giving her estrogen generally doesn't do it either. It's making it. So my whole thing is if you can make it, that's the best solution. And you can realize, what have I not done in my life, which is why I'm not making the right hormones over beyond, what is it, beyond menopause. All this menopausal problems that women are having, so many divorces during menopause because she's just not her, she's so stressed because her hormones are out of balance because her ovaries are no longer making the estrogen. What can make estrogen at that point is her adrenal gland. But
Mm.
if she's been stressed out for 10 years, her adrenal gland is burnt out and she can't make the estrogen, so she can still just make testosterone. She needs the estrogen to balance her testosterone, and her testosterone, her estrogen, these will all naturally start going down. But the key to an active sex life, a happy life for a woman, is the right balance of her testosterone and her estrogen. When she's younger, it's the body automatically does it.
Mm.
After, I mean, it demands it, and if it doesn't get it, she feels really unhappy. So she could be hormonally out of balance after menopause and have kind of a contentment in her life. She won't have so much stress in her life.
Low
It's
estrogen and low testosterone, just kind of a duller
yeah,
experience of
it's a
life.
duller experience, and often uh, kind of a testosterone driven bitterness for some women, which is, I can't depend on anybody. I'll just do it myself. And see, that feeling I can't depend on anybody is a symptom of low estrogen.
Mm.
See, I can depend. Oh, I have so many people I can depend on. And I'm not
Mm.
saying all women. I'm saying when the problems show up, this is the reason, and this
Mm.
is also the solution. Is having this understanding. So here's a quick tips, because we already gone over time, and but I think I'm okay with that for a few minutes. I want to leave people. This is so the knowledge. There's more knowledge at my website, marsvenus.com. Uh, my favorite course at we have so much free stuff, but one course you can pay for. It's a 6-week workshop. It's really profound. It's called Understanding Men. I
Mm.
also do weekend workshops here in California, travel around the world doing them, but that's always available at my website. The tips. So the tips are this. A woman can practice, first of all, for men to give her 4 hugs a day. Just say to your husband, honey, I realize my estrogen levels are low. I need 4 hugs a day. And each hug needs to be 6 seconds. And say something sweet to me. I'm going to say something to you. And what she's going to say on one of those hugs during the day is she's going to say, do you love me? And he's going to say, yes. That's it.
Of
And
course. Oh,
never,
wait, no.
exactly. The men will take it personally.
You asked me yesterday. Of course I do again.
Yeah, of course I
Oh.
do. Of course I do. It's an expression of love to say those words. It's powerful, but it only is powerful, and I'll say it's most powerful. In many cases, it's only powerful if the woman asks for it.
Mm.
See, I have one client, and I have them doing this to change their relationship. One of the most powerful tools I teach. It's simple things that are powerful. And when I first taught them, he said, I tell you all the time, you're beautiful. I love you. You're amazing. And she goes, yeah, yeah. But she pushes it away. But if she has to ask for it, she can't be pushing it away.
Mm.
See, it's like you say to them, I love you so much. And sometimes they like it, but sometimes they think, well, if you love me so much, why'd you forget to bring home the
Mm.
milk? Immediately that comes up. But if
Right.
she has to find the vulnerability, if you say, do you love me? That's super vulnerable. Because what if he was to say, of course? or what if he was to say, well, it's sort of changed, or I'm kind of mad at you, whatever it is, or I'm thinking of leaving you. You could say anything. They would just rip her to shreds. You see, when you say, "Do you love me?" you're giving someone the power to hurt you or elevate.
Mm.
If I don't reveal it, and women go, well, I don't feel that insecure. I say, well, you're not in touch with that part of you. But when you're putting on your makeup next time, ask yourself why you're putting on the makeup. When you're changing outfits, why are you changing outfits? Because you want people to love you. And when you fell in love with this man, you want to feel the same feelings when you began the relationship. Well, that was your big question. Does he love me? Is he there for me? Does he think I'm beautiful? Why do we have to stop doing that? And that's when the sex was the best. If you want the sex to be like it was in the beginning, you need to be like you were in the beginning. It's just real simple logic here. And this is a mind blower. So you start with it doing 4 hugs a day, and one of the hugs she'll say, "Do you love me? Or do you feel you still are you still happy with me? Are you glad you married me? If you're married, you still think I'm beautiful?" Any of these kind of phrases. "You promise you love me?" And he's, "Yes, I promise I love you." Now, if I was a man just being logical and not my romantic side, she can say, you are you sure you will always love me? Now, after 5 years of marriage, or hearing other people's stories about what happens in their marriages, well, I can't be sure that I always love you, because if you were to mistreat me, how can I still love you? Or I can love you at a distance. That's called logical thinking.
Mm.
There's times not to use your logical brain, but just let your heart speak. You let your heart speak.
Mm.
And by
There's also
avoid,
times, per John Gray's doctrine, fake it till you make it,
that's
and
right.
you give us permission in the last show. And I love that because it might not be the best time for the couple right now, and they might be struggling into dysfunction. But if you follow the assignment and you pay good money for the course and study it, then go do your 4 hugs a day for 6 seconds. It's beautiful stuff, but I think we're so stuck in ruts that we need to bust out and take this advice to heart, even the fake it till you make it part.
Yeah, and even with when she says, "Do you love me?" Maybe a part of me goes, "Well, maybe not today," but you don't say that. If you see the thing about men, if she says, "Do you love me?" Already we recognize she's vulnerable.
Mm,
So that in itself brings out more love inside of us.
mm,
Then we say the right thing. And if you're sort of not, you don't have the words for it, but you say, "Yes, I love you." The answer to that is, "Yes, I love you." And then another question, which is, "How much do you love me?" And the answer to that, "I love you so much." At least that is a simple little ritual you do. Now, why the ritual? Because when she's vulnerable and he says that, it will touch her in a positive way. And then he will feel his connection with her.
mm,
Not only that, but he said, "I love you." When you say something and you're a man, you want to be right. Okay. This is what runs every man. If I say it, I want to be right. So, this is your strength. I'm right. This is why couples argue. I want to be right. Nothing wrong with being right. That's how you get paid. That's how you save your life. That's how you save other. Nothing wrong with being right. People say, "Oh, you're always trying to be right." Of course, I'm trying to be right. But let me also do the right thing. But
yeah.
when I say "I love you," and she, to whatever extent she can let it in, I now will defend that statement. And there's a part of the brain which is now called the reticular activating system, which is the part of the brain that looks for reasons to be right. That's its job.
Mm,
That's why you said, that's why setting goals is so important for testosterone production. If you set a goal, then your brain immediately goes, "Okay, what are the best ways to do it? How much energy are you going to need to do it?" If you don't have a clear goal in mind, you just sit there. You can just go with the flow. Nothing wrong with going with the flow, but it's good to have a direction you're going in, and that will bump up your testosterone. Uh, I think I heard Tony Robbins used the phrase, he's all about manpower, get out there and
mm,
achieve your goals and everything. And he used the phrase, which was, always have a compelling future. A compelling future. You're looking forward to
mm,
something. You see, it's
mhm.
it's from my side, just have a goal that you feel you can achieve and you're moving towards it. But it was a good phrase, compelling future. I could see why you would use that phrase. So that's the first thing. 4 hugs a day, the powerful technique of looking for reassurance. After you practice that for a while, when you have sex, at least once a week,
Mm,
and ideally, and not in every situation, only once a week. Now, why is that? There's
mm,
research showing that for men's testosterone levels, if they have sex on Saturday night and they have it on Tuesday, on Saturday morning, his testosterone level does not is the same as it always is. And the same as always is 1% down every year. That's the average for men, instead of going up, which has happened for me. Now, I can only say this, I intuitively knew it. I only had sex once a week. Okay. But I'm a sex expert and everything. I counsel that. People say, "How much sex do you have?" I said, "Quality over quantity." And that was just my instinct. And I didn't like saying it because everybody was always disappointed when I said it, because we're all sex addicts, right? And there's nothing wrong on a weekend, special time, a lot of romance, get in bed and do it. But what happens is now couples are often creating a quota. And we used to have sex twice a week, if not 3 times a week. And then some men are just addicted to sex. They want it every day. That's a different story. But the research shows if you have sex on Saturday night and you go 6 days without an emission as ejaculation, you go 6 days without, you could have sex without ejaculation, which is what I do. So I have sex every day, but you can have, that's a whole nother topic. Okay? That's advanced stuff.
That's going to be show number 5, I think. Yeah,
that's a big topic. But oh my God, it means the woman wants to have sex with you every day. It's not, and then that makes you want to have sex with them. Okay, so this amazing stuff that we can grow into. But the research, they haven't done the research on that. The research on the not ejaculating more than once a week. What happens is after sex, during sex, your testosterone goes up depending on how amazing it is and how much passion there is. But always you have your emission, your testosterone will always go back to your baseline. Now, while it's at baseline, if you have sex again or you masturbate, it will go back to baseline. But on Saturday morning, when you wake up, it will be at baseline. If you go 6 days without ejaculating, a man's testosterone levels will double, or at least go up 50%. Mine double, but it will go up. The research on young men was they went up 50%. That's biologically a reality. If you ejaculate too much, your testosterone levels go down. And this is my major reason why we have all these 20-year-olds today whose testosterone is 20% lower than it was 20 years ago on average. They're doing it every day. Nobody understands. It's a big secret. They can't even do a study with a control group in college. Most of these studies are on college people.
Yeah.
So these are young men. If they go without sex for 6 days and then have sex, you got to have sex as well. If you're not having sex, it doesn't increase 50%. You have a compelling future. You went 6 days without sex, and now you have a compelling future. And even if you're not in the mood, if you're in a couple relationship, what I recommend is getting in bed and saying, okay, we're not going to have sex. There's no goal at all. We're just going to gently get naked under the covers and massage each other and just touch each other. It feels good. There's no goal. There's no goal. And ironically, that's the best advice, even if you're having sex. There's absolutely no goal. You're just giving pleasure to your partner. And you in your mindset, I'm giving pleasure to my partner and I'm being pleased for one reason, to feel the love that's in my heart. This is, most people are not aware that if men feel pleasure, then they can feel more. And when they can feel more, they can access the ability to feel the love in their heart. Because every man who's happy marriage to a certain extent, he loves his partner. Of course, I love you, honey. I'm not, you're the one. I'm committed to you. I love you. But am I like feeling the love? Generally not. There's even men who've written books on experts saying love is not a feeling. It's because they've never felt love. What they do is they do loving things. In the beginning, they sure felt love, but they've forgotten that, because the ability for men to access the feeling of love either happens with little children, someone in need, a big thing you do in need. You feel you love yourself more. You feel proud of yourself. But this feeling of love for your partner is activated to the greatest extent through the sexual interaction. That's just how we're biologically set up. That's when men can feel the most, because we're designed, it causes so much pleasure, okay, just pure pleasure to be stimulated. But if you go just into the pleasure, it's over. If you go into, I'm feeling pleasure to now feel my love and express my love, now it lasts longer, and eventually you mature into no need to have a emission. You become multi-orgasmic as a man, as a woman. So these are all possibilities that, we can learn from the ancients. This was taught, thousands of years ago. The tantrics and the Taoists, they all made everything a spiritual celebration. But that knowledge was very secret, because you can't do it unless you have access to both your male and female side. It's a very, and people today do. So, but the first step is just giving up the addiction. It would never work until you give up the addiction to having sex more than once a week. So it's just an addiction. It's why it produces so much pleasure. It produces so much dopamine, and then your body will go back. But just like with any addiction, if you indulge it, it just gets worse and worse. So some men want to come 3 times a day. They're just completely addicted to it. Very, very unhealthy addiction. even though it's a very natural thing to make love, to have sex, and those things. Oh, so I want to give another takeaway. I've got
Mm.
that this is the little things make a big difference. That's a straight Mars Venus one. But for folks
Hmm.
who haven't read Men Are From Mars, uh, men don't know. They think one big thing. This was Valentine's Day, and I got 24 roses from my partner for Valentine's Day, and they look beautiful. I could have on a regular basis, you get a response. I can bring a one rose and get the same response. See, men always think bigger is better, and occasionally bigger is better. But you can't do 24 roses every week. It will just become habituated. Oh, he brought
Mm.
roses again. He brought roses again. But you do little things. Little things make a big difference for women. Little things do very little for men. So so if you want to get a surge in estrogen, give her 24 roses. You get a surge in estrogen. She can check that off. I got my Valentine's
Mm.
rose. But again, on a random basis, you bring a rose, 3 roses, you're going to get the same response. You give a hug. After a while, the hug thing will be a little bit habituated, but still do it because a biological need to be touched in a
Mm.
non-sexual way is very, very important. It's just biology there. So that's one. I think of another quick one. I know the bell rang off. I've got another interview, but I'm so much happy to connect
Oh
with you.
gosh. Just such a beautiful show today. And you covered so many amazing topics. I appreciate you so much, John, and fresh new stuff. Some of it was in Beyond Mars and Venus, and then we went beyond Mars and Venus.
Yeah,
What would
it's
we
always
expect
evolving.
anything less from John Gray? So go get on to your other interview. I encourage listeners to listen over and over to the same show and get all this stuff because we moved through quickly, but some amazing life-changing insights, in my opinion.
Brad, I have 3 minutes. I have one more.
Okay,
This is
one
a
more.
really fun hack. All right. So if I was like exhausted and tired or not even exhausted and tired, and my wife was going to go make tea. Okay, she likes to drink some tea. And the last of her mind would be to ask me to make her a cup of tea. Because
Mm.
a man will think, well, you can make it yourself. What's the big deal? It's a cup of tea. So my partner, I said, any little thing you ever want me to do that you can do yourself, please ask me to do.
Mm.
When a woman asks you to do something she can do herself, it's extremely vulnerable because a man will say, well, you can do it yourself. But the reality is it raises estrogen. What is it when you go to a restaurant? You can cook your own meal. You can do that, but having someone do something you can do for yourself creates romance. It's a simple logic. Nobody thought of that. Okay, so
Mm.
this is asking little things that you can do yourself at least once a day. Just make it. So many women have difficulty asking for things because the only time they'll ask is when they can't do it and they really need you to do it, or they'll ask you or they won't ask you. A lot of women walk around with a little resentment because they think you should have done that and you didn't do that.
Mm.
Because it's so obvious to a woman that she,
Mm.
how could you ignore me? They think we have a hat on time. We're supposed to understand women and be motivated to do things. I like flowers. Why aren't you bringing me flowers? And of course, his response will be, well, I did that. Why do I have to do it again? And you go to the grocery store, so why don't you pick them up? See, we don't have the same sensibilities, but for women to actually feel the love in their heart. Remember, I said women being vulnerable helps us to step forward, say that, then both can feel the love more over time. For her to feel the love, she has to experience her vulnerability. That gives him energy. And when he does something for her, big or small, causes estrogen to go up, and she can start to feel her love more. See, they get stuck in he didn't do this, he didn't do that, and or habituate, and there's no passion there. So this is a real simple. It's you put your hands up and with a little signal, and you say, when you have a chance, I need your help. And you just quietly do this. This means it will only take less than 5 minutes.
Mm.
It won't ask for more. It's a 5-minute deal. So when you have a chance, I need your help. That's one phrase. Another one is just casually when you're sitting together, maybe you're watching TV or she's doing something, you're doing something, and she says, "Oh, John, would you do me? But this would you help me with something?" And says, or she could just go direct. Say, "Would you make me a cup of tea?
Mm.
Would you finish up the dishes? Would you put that trash away?" Just a little request. See, what women, the reason they do so much is they can't ask for help. And what they
Mm.
need most to produce estrogen is experience. I can get help. So this is an agreement make with their partner where he'll say, yes, at any time, no matter what I'm doing, whatever, unless it's the end of the Super Bowl Sunday. And
Yeah.
even then you can put it on pause with our TVs today. But still, it is you put your hand up for 5, absolutely without any resistance, I will do whatever you ask me to do.
Oof.
And what I've never met a man that I can talk to and
Mm,
say, you won't give your wife 5 minutes. Every man will say, of course I'll give her 5 minutes.
mm.
Now you say, now 5 minutes, you're going to do something that you think is a waste of time, or she could do herself, or it's no big deal. So what? You're giving her 5 minutes and she can get that. People don't realize these little things have a huge impact on women's estrogen levels, knowing that anytime I can ask and I can get that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love that final thought. So easy to turn things around if you just set your mind to it and make the commitment.
And I like what you're saying. If you've got, a couple's got history and they've got stuff, just put your stuff here and try these things. And
Mm,
just try these things, and the past melts away because you're now making the
mm.
hormones of being in the moment.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
marsandvenus.com. We could see all the courses. We can pick up the books. And it's John Gray, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thank you so much, John.
One correction, it's Mars, Venus, no
Oh,
and in
marsvenus.com. Sorry.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much. It was a
we'll
nice,
find
nice.
you.
All
And
right.
keep up the great work. I
Thank you,
appreciate you,
Brad.
man.
So happy for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.